All right, good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time it is for you when you're watching this. Thanks for looking at my presentation. Um, Today I would like to talk about the discrimination and how it affects industries all around the world, not just the aviation industry. I'll have a main focus in this presentation on that, but I really would like to talk about how it affects people, how it affects industries, how it affects the legal landscape and how it can be prevented and how we can adopt inclusive policies into our workplace as fellow people, as coworkers, and how we can help our employers do the same. All right, so the specific piece of legislation that I would like to focus on during this presentation is the Bostock versus Clayton County Supreme Court case. This Supreme Court case was brought before the Supreme Court justices to talk about Title VII and how it can extend its protections to more people than what it was first initially meant for. So when you talk about Title VII, you know that includes discrimination. It prevents companies from discriminating you based on sex, religion, race, national origin. And this case was the case of two LGBTQ persons who were fired for participating in LGBTQ activities. Specifically, Gerald Bostock was fired after he joined an LGBTQ recreational softball team, and Donald Zarda was filed after he just mentioned that he was a homosexual. This case caused the Supreme Court to take a look at Title VII and the protections afforded in the bill and rule that they should be extended to those of the LGBTQ community. So the Supreme Court ruled that these companies were discriminating because of sex. This ruling has broader societal and legal movement towards inclusion and diversity. It reinforces the notion that employees should be judged based on their qualifications and performance, not their sexual orientation or gender identity. This also highlights the recognition of the importance of diversity in the workplace. Again, diversity in the workplace, very important. That's how we learn. That's how we get different ideas. If we were all the same, we'd all have the same ideas and we wouldn't learn anything. So diversity and inclusion is very important, and we need to strive to make that an important part of our corporate work. All right, these two individuals, they weren't like new employees. They weren't on probation. They weren't, new. They were long-term employees that were fired and discriminated against because they were homosexual. So that the Supreme Court ruled that is discrimination based on sex. These terms generate the following rule. An employer violates Title VII when it intentionally fires an individual employee based in part on sex. It makes no difference if other factors besides the plaintiff's sex contributed to the decision, or that the employer treated women as a group the same when compared to men as a group. So that's from the Supreme Court ruling on the Bostock versus Clayton County case. Direct quote taken. So again, this discrimination, these companies that discriminated against these two employees forced them to take legal action, forced the Supreme Court to take another look at Title VII and see if they could extend the protections that are provided in that piece of legislation. All right, next I would like to specifically talk about Title VII and the protections that are afforded in that bill. Specifically, the Civil Bill of Rights and Title VII in its entirety. So the introduction to the act reads, quote, "To enforce the constitutional right to vote, to confer justice upon the district courts of the United States, to provide injunctive relief against discrimination in public accommodations, to authorize the Attorney General to institute suits to protect constitutional rights in public facilities and public education, to extend the Commission on Civil Rights, to prevent discrimination in federally assisted programs, to establish a Commission on Equal Employment Opportunity, and for other purposes." So this is a direct quote taken from the beginning of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. So again, it affords protections. They established an equal opportunity office to provide, equal employment opportunity commission to let people know about their rights, to let people know, like, hey, this is our new policy. This is what we're trying to do. We're trying to be more inclusive. So here are the legal ramifications if you're not inclusive and you discriminate against a certain people or group of people. These certain actions can be taken against you. Title VII, again, protects people from discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, and national origin. So this act, was instituted and people started to follow it. And all of the LGBTQ stuff, again, is more recent. So they've had more legislation and more things pop up where they've brought suits against certain companies and decided that these protections need to extend to all people. So employers cannot say that someone will not be hired, fired, or promoted based on these 5 key things. In addition to prohibiting discrimination against employees, the legislation requires employees to take steps to prevent discrimination when arguments or complaints arise. So they need to be able to protect their employees from arguments with other employees or arguments with managers or even executives. So that's the whole point of this act, is to provide protection from these things. Title VII, again, it's helped promote healthy work environments. It reduces discrimination, promotes diversity, and gives us legal protection. Quote, "An employer who fires an individual for being homosexual or transgender fires that person for traits or actions it would not have questioned in members of a different sex." So that's, again, taken directly from the Bostock versus Clayton County case. And, that's true. If you're firing an individual based on LGBTQ activities or homosexuality, things like that, you're firing them based on sex, which is discrimination. So this case helped paint a picture of how we should think about Title VII and its application in the workplace. Workplace discrimination remains a prevalent issue in America, in the American occupational landscape. Despite United States laws, 81% of workers aged 50 years and older experienced an area of workplace discrimination. Another report sampled workers 45 years age or older and found that 61% experienced or witnessed discrimination in the workplace based on age. So I know that's age, not LGBTQ, but discrimination, again, is discrimination. It all comes from the same tree, and we need to be aware of that, and we need to know the legal ramifications of protections that are afforded to people, to everyone in the workplace, not just us. All right, so down to the central point of this presentation and how it affects aviation and how it affects aviation and how we must adapt as an industry. So again, this is a new practice, a new way they're trying to be inclusive. So the ruling on this case means that industries will have to treat everyone fairly and must change policies to align. This will include new training programs, new education programs, changes to employee handbooks, changes to workplace language, changes to legal documents and policies. Compliance will take many forms in the new corporate climate, including, again, updated employment contracts, recruitment policies, promotion policies, and terminations. They need to make sure that they're following the law, and then we need to make sure that nobody will bring a suit against them. Things like that, you have to be careful. They must update clauses in certain employee guidelines to include protections for sexual orientation and gender identity. They must update and make sure everyone's on board with recruitment policies, promotion policies, and terminations. They need to be more careful about language and actions in the workplace and make sure that all their employees know that they need to be aware of the changes in policies. These policies also heavily affect the industry when it comes to training and education. The aviation industry and its companies must now spend money and, more importantly, time to train their employees on these new inclusion programs. It is also important, however, to foster inclusion in the workplace, and all employees will benefit by being trained and understand the legal implications of discrimination. So this will all in all lead to a better workplace environment where everyone feels safe, heard, and no matter what, will trust their employer and be more happy in the workplace. So how do we navigate this new work culture? How do we bring diversity and inclusion into our workplaces and help our fellow coworkers? So when trying to be more inclusive, there are always growing pains in every industry, no matter what. Change, people don't like change. They like things to stay the same, no matter what. So again, there be growing pains. People think they're being passed over for promotions. The ways to combat this is to actively listen to your employees, take their concerns, also implement those, make sure that you don't make changes too fast. You can't go from 0 to 100, You have to make sure you implement policies and you're explaining to your employees clearly and directly that this is why this policy is necessary. This is why we're doing it. So training is going to be a key thing in this, making sure all of your people are trained up and know the policies. You must lead by example, showing them like, hey, this is, I'm doing it too, so get ready to make the change, and then you must be aware and you need to treat everybody fairly. No matter what, that's the name of the game, is everybody's treated fair, nobody's discriminated against, and everything should be good. All right, next I'd like to talk about discrimination and how it affects individuals. So experiencing discrimination in the workplace can lead to many mental illnesses, depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts. When you treat people unfairly or bully them, it will destroy an individual's morale and may lead them into depressive episodes. This is really the key thing why discrimination is not okay in the workplace or in your individual lives or anything like that, because it can lead to people committing suicide, people ending up in depressive episodes that they can't pull themselves out of, anxiety when they come into work, knowing that they're going to get bullied or they're going to have to deal with that one person that treats them unfairly. It can also destroy the morale of a company. If your employees don't have morale, if your employees aren't there to help you out, they're going to be less likely to want to do the job, to want to, come to work. So discrimination really destroys morale and should be nipped in the bud whenever it arises. All right, so ultimately your company will always be more successful if you can treat people right and build trust with them. When you help people and give them the benefit of the doubt, they will trust you, which builds company morale and makes people actually want to do the job that they're in. In turn, if they do not feel like they can trust you, they are likely to treat your customers and other employments with hostility or unfairly. Always be mindful of how you treat your staff and your consumers and just other people in general. Stories and actions get around a lot faster these days, And you do not want to end up in a story that makes your company fail. You don't want to end up on the news. You don't want to end up in a legal case. You don't want to end up owing somebody money. Again, diversity and inclusion is how we combat discrimination. It's how we avoid suits like Bostock versus Clayton County. We have to always be mindful and be aware. Some things you can do to build trust with your consumers is always do the right thing. Take care of your employees, they'll take care of your customers, and work with people and treat them fairly no matter what. Next, I'd like to discuss the ethicality involved with Title VII, with the Bostock case, with discrimination in general. Ethics is always the key when you're dealing with people and fair treatment. People generally know what is right. It's just if they choose to do it or not. So ethicality is one of those things that ethically a lot of companies know that, hey, this is the right decision, but for one reason or another, they choose not to do the right thing. So Title VII has made it mandatory for companies who do not want legal ramifications brought against them to treat their employees fairly and with respect. We cannot just turn people away because they dress, identify, or appear in a certain way. Everyone deserves the same opportunities as everyone else. We should not get a better opportunity just because of the color of our skin or because of our gender. Diversity and inclusion extend to all people, regardless of all of that. Remember what Christ said. He did not say, "Come some that are brokenhearted, and I will give you rest." He said, "Come all that are weary and brokenhearted, and I will give you rest." That's everyone. Christ he loved everyone. He embodied everyone. He took everyone in. He helped them when they needed it. Christ was always there for other people. He also commanded us to love one another as we love ourselves. If we can remember Christ's teachings and apply them in our lives, we will never come up short. We will always know the answer to how we can be better than we were before. So Christ wants all people to come to him, and he loves all people, and he's always inviting. So no matter what, we should strive to do the same in our lives. We should strive to be that person that people can come to in times of need. We should strive to be Christ-like and love one another no matter what they've done to wrong us. So we must always keep Christ's teachings in mind when we're talking about discrimination. All right. In conclusion, the Bostock case was a necessary case for the Supreme Court to review and make a ruling on. They made the right decision. No one deserves to be discriminated against because of how they look or their sexual orientation. Those are things that make us all different and make the world a happier and better place. Life would be boring if we were all the same and all thought the same. These kinds of things need to be protected. Everyone deserves a fair shot at each job opportunity and should not be able to be fired just because they are a woman, African American, or homosexual. This kind of thing is being slowly but surely eradicated in our society for the better. Diversity is the key to being fulfilled in your workplace and also helps you learn about other cultures and how people think. So again, these cases are necessary. Discrimination is wrong. We must protect one another and love one another. Thank you for listening. Again, my name is Cody Bateman. I'm in the School of Aviation Leadership at Liberty University. And these are all the references that I've used. Thank you. Have a great night.